Welcome to the Industry 45 show. Shane Christopher Neal here, and we do most of our interviews here in this wonderful studio at Giant TV, but this one I caught up with the lovely Lee Aaron in Niagara Falls. She was playing at Seneca Queen. I've always been a big fan of Lee Aaron. Of course, she came out in 1982 with the Lee Aaron Project. So her name is actually not Lee Aaron, it's actually Karen. But in 1984, probably the biggest impact in her career was coming out with Metal Queen. And she's kind of lived with that in a good and bad way, but the Metal Queen is still at it. Of course, in the 80s, she came out with Body Rock, 1989. It was charted one of 20 most influential Canadian albums of the 80s, and I'll never forget seeing her on that tour, actually in Crystal Beach, Ontario. She's done jazz, blues, opera, and she kind of disappeared a little bit, and then has come back over the last few years. She had Fire and Gasoline about a year and a half ago, I believe it came out. And of course, brand new album, Diamond Baby Blues, is out. And always a privilege to see Lee and talk to her, and check it out right now. The Industry 45 show. This is from Seneca Queen. It is Lee Aaron. Check it out. All right, Industry 45 show, Giant TV, SCN, with the amazing Lee Aaron here in Niagara Falls to play a show at Seneca Queen. So it is an industry show. I want to talk about the early 80s and into the 80s when you were a rock star. Well, you're still a rock star now, but I found you in the 80s when I used to watch Much Music all the time. Yeah. So what was life for you like back then?
Life or the industry?
Well, okay, let's go with the industry. Yeah, let's go with the industry.
It was a very exciting time because you got to remember the sort of explosion of video television happened in like 83, 84 with MTV and Much Music. And if you were an artist that was visual in the least and able to produce some videos, which I was, you were all over. So like at one point in time, I was just kind of like the it girl on Much Music. You couldn't turn on Much Music without seeing Lee Aaron something, right? And so it was just a very different time. It was very exciting. And the nice thing too was it was a way to take your music to another level of expression, because you're like, okay, well, this is the audio that we've created, but now you're going to create a visual picture that would accompany it. And so, yeah, it was just a really vibrant, exciting, fun time. And it you know, I think it actually, that whole video era built rock stars.
Absolutely.
And we don't have that. I think the last real rock star was Kurt Cobain.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's interesting because do you think that if you didn't have Much Music or MTV, do you ever think, geez, what would my life be like, right? Because the audio was great, but people were not able to experience the same and kind of get into your space. I remember Only Human played like every night at 5:35 on Much Music, and I used to watch that and go, I love that girl, and she's got great music too.
Oh, well, would it have been different? I mean, it was sort of a balancing act because I was also a woman in the hard rock genre at that time. And so it was sort of a constant battle to not be marketed like, it was how do I explain it? In the 80s, women were largely objectified in rock videos. They were like being sprayed down with water, or they were like, you know, dancing in the background, or they were like sort of trophy appendages to make the male rock stars look more virile, you know what I mean? And so I felt like it was sort of a constant battle to not be that girl, to be, my mission was to be more empowering for women than to be objectified by the industry. So there was a little bit of that kind of battle going on for me all the time, where I was very conscientious of like, when is the image going to supersede the music, right?
Absolutely.
And I didn't want that to happen. So when we actually put out the Body Rock album.
And that's what I was going to ask you next, because you did some really interesting videos.
Like Body Rock album, the first single, when it went to radio, I said to the label, how about we don't even put a picture of me on it? How about it was that airbrushed heart with the barbed wire on it was very timely of its time. So when that went to radio, it was just the airbrushed image. It wasn't a picture of me. And, you know, surprisingly, that was one of my biggest singles in Canada. Radio was all over it because,
So today, you have a brand new album coming out too. And so things are much different today in the industry, and they're much different for you. So you put an album out a couple years ago with Fire and Gasoline. You put a brand new album out now. What are things like now for you in the world of rock and roll?
It is, I mean, because everything is digital now, right? It's like recording methods are digital.
Yeah.
The platforms for distributing your music are digital with Spotify and iTunes and Apple Music. So it looks quite a bit different. I mean, the record industry has literally completely fallen apart. Like there's nobody, there's no rich fat cats anymore running the business. There's a handful of major labels left, and they do these 360 deals where if you're a direct signing, they take a piece of like
merchandise, everything
live and everything, because that's the only way they can survive. So for an artist like me now, I just keep making my own record labels and just going and getting solid distribution somewhere so that they can actually get me into all of those distributing outlets, but I have creative control over the product. And because I have no interest in doing that game again where I'm, having to get my songs approved by the label. It's like, I want to do what I want to do.
Was that a headache that time when you were with Attic Records? A lot of Canadian artists were. And that time where everybody wanted to be signed to a label and everyone thought that was the power that you needed to have. But through your experiences, do you look back and go, man, I think I could have done things a lot different maybe? Or was it just the time you had to sign to a label if you were going to get radio player distribution?
That's kind of what the game was like back then. And so I mean, surprisingly enough, I was one of the very first artists in Canada to go independent. I got off Attic Records in 1992 and went completely independent. And I had a distribution deal, I believe, at that time with Polydor.
Okay.
Polygram. Yeah, which anyway, but yeah, so back then though, that's what it was. It was like the be all and end all to get a record deal. And but so there, and again, it was the creative sort of thing going on all the time where we would write some songs, we'd bring them into the label, somebody else would have a big hit, and the label would go, well, we need you to write songs that are more like this, because from the label perspective, it was not so much about nurturing the development and the growth of the artist, it was how are we going to
make money now?
Have a hit single and make money now?
Absolutely, yes.
And so there was always that balancing act as well. Yeah. And so honestly, as much as and Attic Records, they didn't do anything wrong. They were wonderful for what they were.
They were doing
at
what
that
every
time.
other record label was doing.
Exactly. But it was kind of a welcome relief to finally go completely independent and just go, I can just make the art I want to make now. Right.
Some of the art you're making, last question is with Sean Kelly.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk to Sean about his book, and you're in his book, obviously. So what's that been like? Is this last album is the first album he's really been part of? I know he was with Fire and Gasoline, but I think right now this is the first album you've been writing with Sean with, correct?
No, Sean and I did some writing. Sean joined the band about 5 years ago.
Okay.
He actually just subbed on a couple of shows. When I came out to Toronto, I asked him, can you just fill in my guitar player?
Because he plays with everybody. Come on.
Well, this is his solid act though that he's in. He subs for a lot of people, but he's actually in this band.
Yeah, right. No, I get that.
And so it became very evident. The first few shows we did together were like, my gosh, you need to be in this band, and we need to be writing together. So we did quite a bit of writing together for Fire and Gasoline.
Okay.
And we co-wrote quite a few tunes on Diamond Baby Blues, which came out last year. And then the album that's coming out in the next couple months is called Power Soul Rock and Roll Live in Germany. And so we recorded that 2 years ago when we were on tour in Germany.
Nice.
And so we have a live album coming out, and then we're also have plans to do some writing for a studio album later this year. So Sean has just sort of come into the fold, and it's nice because, Dave Reimer, my bass player, is an amazing writer. Sean is a great writer. I'm a solid writer. My drummer, John Cody.
He's your husband.
And my husband.
So he's in the band.
He's an amazing arranger. So we actually have this band chock full of talent.
Yeah.
So it's great. We just have to get into a room together and we create music, right?
We're looking forward to tonight, Leanne.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's been awesome to follow your career from the 80s, and I'm looking forward to tonight. Appreciate your time.
It's going to be an awesome show.
All right.
It's going to be great.
All right, Leanne, this is Giant TV.